News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Prospects for a government shutdown intensifying as the deadline nears. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries urging President Trump and Republicans, though, to negotiate with Democrats to prevent a shutdown at the end of the month.
Democrats are not going to go along to get along. Our position is clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Senate Democrats, meantime, say they'll filibuster a stopgap spending bill that doesn't reverse recent changes to Medicaid or extend Obamacare tax credits that are set to expire at the end of the year. President Trump says Democrats are to blame for any potential government shutdown, saying they're the ones who are shutting down. Interesting side note on the shutdown. According to Bloomberg News, National Guard troops deployed to Washington, D.C. will continue working, but without pay if the government shuts down due to a funding dispute. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni vowing to present a motion to the country's parliament to recognize a Palestinian state, but with conditions that Hamas must release all remaining hostages and not be part of any future Palestinian administration. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set to meet President Trump Monday in New York.
Please. Order in hall.
Delegates from dozens of countries walked out of the UN chamber when Netanyahu spoke yesterday. In his speech, the Israeli prime minister said Israel must finish the job against Hamas in Gaza. Hurricane Umberto, Category 4 storm, set to churn up potentially life-threatening surf across parts of the Caribbean this weekend, according to the National Hurricane Center. Energy from Umberto is expected to create life-threatening surf and rip current conditions on beaches in the area. In Washington, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, meantime, summoning top military leaders for an extraordinary meeting this coming week. Bloomberg's Nathan Hager has more from Washington.
The Pentagon says Hegseth will address senior military leaders early this week, but it's not saying why or what he plans to say. The Washington Post has reported the secretary has asked hundreds of admirals and generals to meet at Marine Corps Base Quantico near Washington on Tuesday, the day before a possible government shutdown. The scale and security implications of this travel have come under scrutiny, with so many top brass in one place and away from their posts at one time. In Washington, I'm Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Sources tell AP the FBI has now fired more than a dozen agents who were photographed kneeling during a racial justice protest in Washington following the 2020 death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. The Bureau last spring reassigned the agents. The kneeling had angered some in the FBI, but was also understood as a possible de-escalation tactic during a period of protests. This is about justice. That's the message from President Trump, answering questions from reporters about former FBI Director James Comey's indictment.
He lied a lot, but this was a very important thing. He could have said, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He didn't say that. He gave a very specific answer.
Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress in a criminal case filed days after President Trump issued a public demand to prosecute Comey and other perceived political enemies. The U.S. will cancel Colombian President Gustavo Petro's visa due to his reckless and incendiary actions, according to the State Department. President Trump previously decertified Colombia in the U.S. fight against drug trafficking. Consumer sentiment lags, though, and Anastasia Amoroso, Chief Investment Officer at Partners Group, says proceed with caution.
Near term, I do think we're bound for some sort of a bump in the road, for some sort of consolidation, because we've come a long way in a short period of time. If you do look at some of the technical factors, we certainly overbought.
Amoroso there is Chief Investment Officer at Partners Group. Sources say Electronic Arts is in talks to be acquired by a group of U.S. investors with backing from Saudi Arabia. Could get an announcement on this mega deal as soon as next week, though nothing is finalized, and the sources also say the talks could fall apart. Sources say Kraken is in advanced talks to raise new funding that could value the crypto exchange at about $20 billion. A New York City medical examiner says the man who opened fire inside the headquarters of the NFL this summer had the brain injury known as CTE. Shane Tamara used an assault-style rifle in that rampage in July, killing 4 people, then shooting and killing himself. He left behind notes saying he might have CTE. Clinical neuropsychologist Dr. Kirsten Dams-O'Connor, who directs the Brain Injury Research Center at Mount Sinai in New York City.
Right now, we cannot diagnose CTE during life, and right now there are no curative or disease-modifying treatments for CTE.
And day 2 of the Ryder Cup underway at Bethpage Black on Long Island. Defending champion Europe leads, and the U.S. is in a 3-point deficit. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. This is Bloomberg.